All right, we're live here to chat about hobby related things right on the eve of the Las Vegas Open. I'd like to
Is
say
it the
I'm
eve?
excited about it. Not Eve,
Isn't
really,
it
but
or almost the eve? Yeah.
well, I don't even know when it starts. Is it like
I think it's
Thursday?
on Thursday.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, so the Eve would be tomorrow.
Yeah, almost. So exciting times, right? Exciting times.
I guess. Maybe.
Maybe. Maybe it is.
I guess Games Workshop will reveal some things, and I think, I guess to sort of advertise how they're going to show stuff at the Las Vegas Open. They have a picture of like a cyber mastiff or something.
Yeah,
It's
wow, that looks dumb.
yeah, it's pretty dumb looking. I mean, it's
At least it
fine.
looks like a dog, but I feel it to me seems very caricatured.
Yeah.
Um,
Like it
to the point that like I wouldn't want it, but
like I
it's
mean,
not bad.
yeah, I guess I'm glad it suggests a more interesting release, which is fun.
Yeah.
Probably a kill team thing. Um, but admittedly, the one kill team release that should have been interesting, like the breachers, or like the ship crew
Oh yeah,
type
and they were
people,
awful.
are so awful. They're like one of the worst 40K releases in recent memory. So like,
The
you
crew were good though.
yeah. So
I
like,
would
you
still
can't really
like
get your
them.
hopes up too much. Which, admittedly, the stuff that came in that box, like that might be a good thing for like running events or something. If we wanted to just do kind of boarding action type small scale stuff, would be pretty
Mm-hmm.
easy to make a board or something to play on because the little wall sections are thinner, and we could maybe even find pictures of them. But it's sort of like the Zone Mortalis type stuff, but they aren't like cubes. So I think it would be easier to paint, but still have some kind of fun, I don't know, hallway fight stuff. And they probably released them separately, but what is it like? Kill Team Into Dark or something? I don't know. It'll probably be hard to find because Games Workshop makes things difficult.
We have we have all the terrain for the kill team stuff with the orcs and Imperial Guard, right?
We do.
It's sold
We
out online? Like, what the fuck? Kill Team
yeah.
Into the Dark is no longer available online.
Oh, so that and what is Shadow Vaults? It kind of seems like a similar type thing
Yeah, let's
that
look at
they
it.
have yeah,
Oh,
just
come
like
on.
thinner wall sections and such. So I feel something like that could be.
Shadow Vaults is also temporarily out of stock online. It's actually cheaper, though. Hey, Dave. Nice to have you here.
Yeah, hey. Yes, I don't know. Maybe that stuff's exactly the same, but this sort of Space Hulk terrain type stuff, like it seems like it's basically identical to Zone Mortalis, like that concept. It's just
It's a shame
less
that
of a pain.
it's a shame the Shadow Vault stuff comes with the Necron shit.
Yeah, right.
Because, like, wow. Do the Necrons even have a new sprue? Guess they probably do, right?
There's
No, they
probably
don't. I
something.
don't. Or they probably have a new sprue. Or maybe they don't even have that.
I think that's all. That yeah. So actually, yeah, they might not. It just might be that
Oh, no,
They
they
have
have a separate sprue that has, I think, some different heads and stuff.
okay.
And like the little tiny floating cyber deals.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's something, but it's still pretty weak. But yeah, I feel that sort of terrain stuff would probably be an easy way to quickly paint up some general stuff that could be used in like Necromunda or stuff like
Yeah, I
that.
think those general walls and stuff are the same between the two. Into the Dark is a more expensive thing, and I don't know if that's because it has more terrain or something.
It's probably just because they realized they wanted more money, if I'm being honest,
Yeah, I mean, that's possible.
based on what GW has a tendency to do, I feel, but who knows?
Yeah. Yeah, I feel that terrain and stuff would be pretty good.
It's maybe not like super cool, but
Yeah.
it it if painted okay, like it would be fine. Cause I've been painting terrain. Oh lord,
You know, you've been doing a good job with that.
like I've kind of just continued to experiment with how to do some stuff and try to determine ways that would make it quicker and easier.
Yeah, so far all the stuff you've done's been looking quite nice. I think it yeah, I mean, I think it looks great, and certainly kind of intriguing and fun to think that a little while, if we ever try and play a game, Eric, we'll have some terrain to use.
Yeah, I think I've been painting now these like in addition to the stuff that we have that post on, there are a bunch of platforms and stuff. And I've been trying to paint them. I did it the same way as the other ones in which I did the sponge stuff, but for the more like black lining and
Hmm.
rust stuff, that was like purely done with Abteilung oil washes
Yeah.
because they're like easier to apply because there's so many little crevices and stuff. It's like hard to get stuff in there.
Hmm.
Um, I so I kind of feel with these, I still will probably go in and use that like acrylic rust wash to make them a little warmer looking,
Hmm.
like the other thing, just to unify them. But then maybe they'll be fine.
I mean, quite frankly, I think they look nice here. Like, I could see. Yeah, I think they look good.
Any suggestions?
I could see, like, going in and, like, adding some, like, red or something to, like, some of those larger pipes or something, just to, like, a dark red. Or even.
Oh, interesting. I guess there's nothing on here. I This poor of me taking photos, but they're on some of the pieces on the sides, like along the upper portions, like where they're like the one on the right has some skulls in the arch areas.
Yeah.
Like there are lights, like lights with like
Oh.
almost like the rhino, the
Oh,
front
yeah.
of a
Hmm.
rhino headlight type lights. And I feel I should, or I guess I wanted to know people's thoughts on how maybe I should paint those, and maybe I should just paint them a solid color and then airbrush kind of around it lightly to do like a slight OSL thing, and then that just be that.
I would look on. I forget his name. On Instagram. It starts with an E. He's he does stuff with lighting all the time. Let's see if I could just scroll through Instagram and find something they've done. But they show tons of like little short tutorials and stuff where they do lighting like that, and I feel you could do something similar.
Because ultimately, I don't want to do anything that like takes too much time. Like,
Yeah.
because I don't know. Even these, like, they're not hard, but even doing this kind of takes a while since you're doing the oil washes, and then they take a while to dry and such. And ultimately, I just want to find something that I think is okay and just move on to. Because I guess it's also stuff that I could probably go back and
Mm-hmm.
like add more to it later or something if I wanted to. I mean,
Yeah.
it seems unlikely that I would do that, but
Yeah. I feel the stuff looks nice as it is, but yeah, depending on maybe if you decide we want to use the stuff for a slightly different thing, you might be able to. But Instagram is just filled with all they do is show you like recommendations.
is there a way can't you up at the top drop down and select things to just get to your following and not the recommendations or something? I thought there was something like that. I mean, they probably still recommend it to some degree. I don't remember how you do it though. Let me see if I can look on my phone here. Oh, if you click the Instagram logo, um, I have following and favorite.
I think it
Or
works
maybe
differently on the computer.
hmm, yeah, it sounds about right. Hey, Bill. Yeah, it probably just works
There's like
differently.
notifications.
So yeah, I don't know. It's probably just different.
Yeah, it's stupid. But yeah,
I
like
guess on the
once.
topic of Instagram, we could mention um there's an artist from Poland who goes by Illuminations of Eternal Warfare. He like does a lot of really sketchy, brutal Rogue Trader inspired pictures and such. And he's disabled with like lower back injuries and such and can't get or hold down a job. And he's been posting lots of cool pictures and stuff. And if anyone is able to send him a little bit of money to help, he would be appreciative. Um, he has a like a coffee KOFI page. Um, I mean, obviously,
Yeah.
nobody's obligated to do that, but if you like his work, you could consider that. Because I feel like his he has doesn't have very many followers, so he puts out a lot of requests for help, but I don't even know how many people even see it.
Yeah, it's true.
Evening, meandering shade, or it is maybe morning for you.
Yeah. Hey. Yeah, but painting terrain, like, cause as I sort of mentioned, even some of this stuff is kind of taking a while, and like you can sink a lot of additional time into
Yeah.
it, and a lot of times, like that time maybe isn't actually doing much.
See, Eric, I found the person. His name's like El Miniaturista. And he's actually.
Okay.
Oh, here he even has something paint, like a way to like paint like little lights with blue and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, this is what.
So that's a way you could do it. Um, And then he
I
also,
would be in, or I would be inclined to try to do something like that, not spend a huge amount of time, because ultimately nobody's gonna like spend too much time looking at it.
well,
What?
they just
I
have.
kind of thought I could just literally airbrush that.
Well, I mean, he has tons of stuff with like, oh, here's like this plasma weapon. Like the first thing he does is he paints it like white. He paints the thing white. Then he lightly airbrushes it around it white. And then I think he airbrushes on like other inks and other stuff like that. Like he has so many they have so many tutorials about how to do stuff like
Okay.
this that I would be tempted to just look through them and find one that like I could do something like that and just do like, yeah, here's again with like a plasma gun. Like he paints it white, then uses an airbrush to get a little more white around it, and then you airbrush on like a wash or an ink or something to get the different color that you want.
Yeah, and probably if it's like a wash or an ink, it's translucent enough that.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. So I'll
yeah.
I'll just try to do something like
So
that.
that's what I would do, and I think for the most part, like if like nearly everything that they paint, they're cool, interesting lighting effects, and they're just he tries and
Yeah.
does them in
Okay.
so many different ways that I would literally just go to their Instagram and look around and find something that you think would work for you.
Yeah. Okay. That's a good idea. So that looks like it'd be pretty quick. I could block in white, then yeah. I'll just.
Yeah, so that's what I would do. And like if you have like any of like the translucent like red inks or like whatever, like it doesn't even matter what color it is, honest. But yeah, so
Hey,
that's something you could
tabletop
consider.
wizards. Alex is here.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's a good idea. I'll have to just look at some of the translucent paints I have, which I guess probably isn't even that many, but
The
Yeah.
exam says something about Michael Bay being charged with killing a pigeon on a set in Italy. I didn't hear about that, but that's interesting.
That poor pigeon.
Yeah, I mean, I apparently one died in a shoot accidentally, and they're protected in Italy.
Hmm.
I didn't know about that. Um, I can't say I'm a Michael Bay fan, but poor pigeon. Hopefully things work out all right.
yeah, I'm
But
not
oh
a
yeah,
big
Ben Alec
Michael Bay
Baldwin
fan.
still walks free. Yeah, I'm sure all of you are at least mildly aware
Mm-hmm.
of Alec Baldwin um killing somebody on set of the Western film Rust. And I don't remember who it was. Perhaps a producer?
I think one of the producers or other was injured, but the other was maybe one of the cinematographers or
Yeah.
some Hutchinson, I think was their last name, perhaps.
Yeah, it's terrible.
But he didn't pull the trigger, he says. I think he's
I
gonna get.
severely doubt that.
Yeah, he's gonna get rightfully probably screwed because of all him running his mouth and doing all these interviews and stuff, like
Well,
saying
him
stuff
just
that
saying that it
they
went
will
off,
easily be
like,
able to show isn't right.
yes. And I mean, obviously, other people were in the wrong on that. Like, how it ever got to the point that a
Yeah.
gun with a live round got into the hands of an actor, why there were even live rounds on the set of the film is ridiculous to me.
Yeah, it doesn't
But
make any sense.
Baldwin cannot claim that he had no fault in that, because I feel one of the first things that one learns or should learn about gun safety is the moment you pick up a gun, you need to check to see whether it's loaded or not. You can't trust somebody else to do it. Even if somebody checked it before they handed it to you, you still need to check yourself.
Yeah, I feel
So like
that's
ultimately, you're responsible for whatever comes out of the barrel of that gun.
Yeah.
So it was a failure on many parts, but he can't claim that he was outside of blame. He ultimately did it. And he
Yeah.
should have known better. And it
yeah,
makes
no.
me feel that probably movie sets all over the place are doing stuff just as irresponsible as whatever was happening on the scene of Rust, and probably worse.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And hopefully things get better because of this.
agreed. Agreed. Um in terms of talking about more cinematography stuff, I've been watching The Last of Us, like the first 2 episodes of the HBO series were
Mm-hmm.
now released, and they're actually, I guess, kind of co-directed, one by the main like writer from the game, Neil Druckmann or something to that effect, and then the other one is the guy who wrote Chernobyl, that HBO miniseries.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's fairly good.
Okay.
Like it does, yeah, pretty good job of conveying kind of what happens in the game so far. Maybe it seems a little bit rushed. Like they could
Okay.
have used it the episodes like as an opportunity to further develop things and develop characters and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And scenes like in the game that may have taken an hour or two as you're like messing around, fighting infected, stuff like that. And there's the opportunity for character banter and stuff like that just isn't in it.
Yeah.
Um, I don't think it's as good as Andor so far. It's
Okay.
not as I don't think it's as well written.
So this is only vaguely related to this, but so over the weekend, I was visiting some family, and on Saturday evening, it was decided we were going to try and watch a movie, and I don't even know quite how it happened, but we first started to try and watch a movie that was released a few years ago, I believe, called A Quiet Place. Has anyone seen that?
Oh, I didn't watch it, but I certainly know of it. And people like it.
It was horrible. Like we got 30 minutes into it and had to stop. Like I thought it was shameful. It was,
Like, people like that.
and I honestly I don't see how they could.
What can you tell me a little bit about this?
Yeah, I can.
Can I tell
So
you what I know about it?
you
It's like
can.
some horror film, maybe in the near future, where there must be these creatures that are hunting people.
Mhm.
And,
Well,
you know,
actually, before you say anything more, if you've never seen it, what I would just recommend people is just go and watch Tremors. Just watch Tremors. Better story, better characters, better everything. But Greg, you can continue. It's like post-apocalyptic world. Things have gone to
city,
shit.
and there are these creatures that, like, are hunting people that can hear really well. And, like, you need to be really quiet, because if you're not quiet, they can find you. Something like that.
That is the entire premise. And um one of the biggest points that I will say towards it, I'm not going to try and spoil too much of it, not but I would recommend you not watch it. um So they have this post-apocalyptic world. They have the setting. There are these monsters. If you make like almost any noise, you will immediately be killed. Pretty much, the things will jump up and find you and kill you. So you really can't make any noise. So that's the setting. And even if you ignore a lot of the problems that come with that setting and things that don't really make that much sense, even if you ignore all that, this movie, the story they decide to tell within that universe is so, it was like baffling to me. Like baffling. There almost isn't a story, and the one they choose is terrible. I almost couldn't believe it.
Okay.
I almost couldn't believe it. I mean, I can tell you what the story is if people aren't upset about spoilers and stuff, but again, you should watch Tremors if you're at all interested in watching a
Yeah, I mean,
somewhat
tell me,
related movie.
I was under the assumption people thought it was
Oh
good.
yeah, it has good ratings. It has like really good. And I think that was part of the reason why we decided that we would try and watch that. And I think we watched like 35 minutes of it and then we stopped it and then watched Nope. And Nope was
Yeah.
very good. But so the story starts off, they tell you on the screen that it's maybe like 90 days after the world went to shit or whatever, or like America went to shit. And it starts out in a rundown grocery store where a family is rummaging around looking for stuff. And this family, like a husband and a wife and 3 kids, and one of the kids is pretty young, maybe I'm not good with ages, but we'll say like 5 or 6 or 8 or something. And this kid is like standing up. Well, all the kids are unsupervised by their parents. They're unsupervised, just rummaging around where they can't make any noise. So that first, like, wow, these are bad parents. But the youngest kid is climbing up on shelves and stuff to get this toy rocket ship, and they obviously fall or they knock the rocket ship over, and their sister runs and catches it like, oh, thank goodness you didn't make that noise. And then the parents finally walk on over like, oh, you can't be doing that, but like, I don't care if you just wandering around, do whatever you want. And they take the toy rocket ship, remove the batteries from it so it won't make any noise. Then they tell the kid, you can't have this. Set it down with the batteries right beside the rocket ship. And then they all leave. The parents leave first, and then wait for the kids to follow after. And so, like, the parents literally just leave their kids unsupervised in the grocery store, where if they make any noise, they're dead. And so, obviously, the kid takes the rocket ship and the batteries because he's unsupervised. And then they're walking back to their home, and as you would imagine, the parents are in the lead, and they're walking in single file with their youngest son just walking by himself, bringing up the rear. And then they get to a bridge, and then the kid puts the batteries back in, and the noise starts coming, and then one of the creatures runs and jumps and like eats or kills the kid. And then it flashes to like a year later. And so it's like the whole beginning point of the thing, it's like, oh my gosh, that was so stupid. Like, these parents are awful. And
Like awful, and you would it sounds like they put no effort into trying to like raise their children
correct.
to be aware of
Correct.
the
Well,
very
that
present
sounds, if
dangers.
anything, that just sounds like a a cheap way to get like emotional buy-in
Correct.
and
Yeah.
just
And then
like
because you were also led to believe that most of the people had either left America or were already dead, but somehow this family made it 90 days with unsupervised children just doing whatever the fuck they wanted. Makes no sense. So already the movie's starting off really badly. And on top of that, like the whole notion that these creatures will get you based on sound, it's a little questionable, and because like literally everything they're doing is making some sound, and so all of that pretty questionable. And then but then a
was this
year later,
campy or like liked because it's
I have no
so
idea, it like
dumb?
complete, no, it's not because it's so dumb, I don't think. But so then a year later, you see the family at this beautifully kept farm with immaculate fields of like corn and crops and shit, and they have
Do any
uh,
of that?
like no idea how they could have achieved this, and they have electricity throughout the place with lights and everything so they can see shit if something's coming. It's like, oh, okay, I guess maybe they have a generator or something, whatever. And then but then they, despite them having lights, they when they're having dinner, they have all these candles lit everywhere. And then obviously one of them at one point knocks over a lantern and it starts a fire and they put it out. So it's like, what the fuck? Why do they even have all that shit when they have electricity and lights everywhere? So
Think
that's
just
stupid.
blind or something, such that they can't see light.
I think they're blind, yeah. And then you find out what the whole plot of the film is. You see that the wife is now pregnant, and
Mm,
they're
Again.
trying to make like a soundproof room for the baby and stuff. And then we tried to watch a little longer and then stopped. And we then, after we watched Nope and stuff, we were curious and see like, well, did we miss anything? Did a story happen? And no, the whole film is the wife goes into labor and the creatures attack and they survive. That's it. That's the whole story. That's the whole movie. It's like, so
sounds
they,
a lot like wasn't there's another Netflix film with
Bird
having to
box.
be
Bird box.
yeah, I think it
so
was
that's
that.
one of them. And like a year or two earlier, there was a movie called The Silence with a similar premise. There's a lot.
Yeah, there are so many of
But
this.
so they came up with this uninteresting apocalyptic world with an uninteresting like set of monsters, and then they decided the story they wanted to tell was an irresponsible family wanted to have another kid. That's it. That is it. Like,
Like, you wonder
baffling.
why would they decide to bring a
Well,
child
yeah,
into
I
such
guess
a
that's
shitty
Well,
it's
like
world?
dumb because they're
unbelievable.
well, it's dumb that they're relying on like that sort of cheap emotional stuff without like developing characters that like fully appreciate what needs to be done. I don't know. It just so
And
The
get
Last of Us sounds a lot better than that.
Well, yeah, so
Like
they
it's
could have
good.
they could have told a story about the importance of family, and it could have been literally almost anything else and been more interesting. And
Which
so,
that's sort of what The Last of Us is about in a way.
well, like it almost has to be like, well, okay, and get this, there's a sequel to the film where it essentially just picks up right after the first movie ended, so like completely baffling.
If you people, you can probably I think HBO even just has it online. There's like the opening for the first episode. It's kind of like a cold open
Mm-hmm.
showing like maybe in the 60s like a talk show of some host interviewing maybe a virologist and then like a mycologist talking about pandemics and stuff and it's pretty neat.
Hmm.
It's actually kind of frightening.
Shay, can you say this again?
The they at least in the first two episodes, they've been trying to do a little bit more to kind of maybe explain more about the outbreak, which essentially it's like a cordyceps fungus, so like that type of
Yeah.
fungus that will uh, like grow on different insects
Mm-hmm.
and fill their brains with like hallucinogens and make them like go and die and then
Mm-hmm.
feed the fungus so it can
Yeah.
and whatnot. So it's basically one of them has evolved that infects humans, and in the first episode, there is kind of like a fictitious talk show type thing in like the 60s or early 70s of this talk show host interviewing, I think it's a virologist, then like another, like, I don't know, is it mycologist, like someone who studies fungi, talking about pandemics and such. And like it's pretty neat. It's pretty kind of chilling, I guess. They did a good job of it. And it kind of does a nice job sort of introducing what is probably coming. But yeah, I'd say thus far it's probably it's one of the best, or probably the best, like kind of video game adaptions into kind of cinema that I've seen. But it does seem, like I mentioned, maybe a little rushed. But there are lots of pretty cool practical effects and such. Like there aren't that many special effects. It's primarily practical effects, which is cool.
That is cool. So one other thing that I should say about A Quiet Place, I think it was at least partially written by, and also one of the main actors in it is John Krasinski, the person from The Office. What's his name? Fuck.
Yeah,
The
shit.
skinny guy who's kind of an asshole,
Yeah,
who's
who is
kind of the
um
villain, one of the sort of a villain.
yeah, tormenting Dwight the whole time.
Yeah, so
Who
that's
marries Pam. I don't, how do
yeah.
I not
Oh, Jim. I think his name's Jim.
Pam,
So
yes.
that is another thing where, like, if you watch stuff like that, it might be hard to get past.
They
But yeah,
eventually acknowledge him being an asshole,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think, but
yeah.
but yeah. So regardless, if you haven't watched it, and I haven't already convinced you not to watch it, don't watch it, and just rewatch Tremors. That's what I have to say.
yeah, but I don't know. I would say The Last of Us is probably worth watching. Although thus far, I feel it's probably still better to play the game. They've had to make a few changes to one of which in the game, the cordyceps thing seems to be primarily spread by spores, and if like you inhale a bunch of the spores, it like you
Yeah,
get changed into like kind of a zombie-ish thing. But in this, they spores don't seem to be as much of a thing. And I think they changed it because they didn't want all the characters to always be wearing gas masks, like filtration masks and stuff, which I
oh,
guess makes sense to some extent. But it has resulted in some things having to be changed in ways that I guess are fine, but I don't really think make it better.
yeah.
But and I don't know if I think the actor playing Ellie, I don't feel is as charming and likable as
Okay.
Ellie in the games. But I don't know. It is maybe a little hard for me to separate it, having played the first game a couple times and the second one. It's hard for me to separate my feelings for the characters from that entire experience. And like
Yeah.
perhaps at the beginning of the game when I was playing it, I also didn't care that much, but I then grew to care.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
maybe some of they're like, I don't know, she's not as likable as I think she could be. Maybe some of that is just me reflecting back. I'm not sure, but
Yeah.
ultimately, it seems to be well done.
Okay.
Yeah, so
I would say after we couldn't finish watching A Quiet Place, as I said, we watched the film Nope, and I would say that was remarkably good. I was really impressed.
yeah, I haven't seen it quite yet.
It's I would Some of it is like pretty harrowing. That's how I would describe it. Like,
Like
whoa.
when I won't talk too much about it, but when there's like the show that the ranch is putting on
Yeah,
and how
that
that
is.
goes poorly, that
Mhm.
is perhaps one of
Yeah.
the
There are
Yeah,
tons of like
I need to see it.
there are tons of very clear references to stuff like the motorcycle in Akira, Neon Genesis Evangelion, like some of like the one iconic scene in that is very, very clearly an influence for the one scene. Um
um the one character has a bunch of vintage t-shirts for cool 90s alternative
oh
rock
yeah,
bands,
like the Jesus
like the
Lizard,
Jesus
Earth,
Lizard. Yeah.
all sorts of stuff. Yeah. It's really good. Um
Okay.
it
One thing,
Yeah.
or Bill Laroon here asks about what are our thoughts of the likelihood of a zombie-like pandemic? I don't think it's very likely. Um, at least from like the ways that have been potentially portrayed in different media and stuff. And also, like, it's sort of weird. Like, you can watch that cold open for The Last of Us, and it's pretty neat. But there's a focus on like how like, oh, I mean, this sort of spoils it slightly that like we have a lot of experience with making vaccines and stuff dealing with viruses and like killing bacteria, but not as much with fungus.
Mhm.
And like, so if fungus evolved to be deadly, we're fucked, is
Yeah. Yeah.
basically it. And I don't really believe that. That's hard to believe that premise. It's not like we can't, like, there are lots of antifungal stuff. I
Yeah.
mean, part of it's like fungus are weird and they are kind of weird. They make a lot of antibiotics,
Mhm.
kill bacteria. They
Oh,
make
and like
lot.
how many antifungal things are made for like athlete's foot and
Yeah,
ringworm
yeah.
and all of those things. It's not like those aren't issues that are common that
Mhm.
Yeah,
lots of
so
people
like
have.
that was kind of my thing. It's sort of, I mean, I guess it obviously it's a sort of suspend your disbelief type thing for the fun of it, but
Yeah.
it some of there's some leaps there that's like, and I almost feel that like in the game when they don't almost like don't even bring it up, like, well, we should have been able to stop this, but we didn't, and now everything's fucked, and that's fine. But in a way,
Yeah.
when they like look deeper at it, it like becomes more like you're trying here, but I don't know if you're really succeeding. And admittedly, while I'm a biologist, I'm still like that. I'm not an expert in fungi and stuff like that, but it still seemed like a little, I don't
Far
know, heck,
reaching.
maybe. Yeah, yeah. But it's still
Yeah.
neat. And I think that what was good about The Last of Us, I mean, it's basically The Road. If anyone's read The Road, like
Mhm.
Cormac McCarthy's The Road, like that's an apocalyptic setting. And it's about, I think it's his son. In this case, it's not quite that, but like a father and a son surviving and their relationship. This is the Last of Us is good because of the relationship between the older character Joel and a relationship he has to protect and transport this, I don't know, like 14, 15-year-old girl across America. and how that relationship develops and the tribulations. Like it's not like very little of what makes it interesting or good is because of the cordyceps
Yeah,
and
yeah.
the
Well, and that
zombies.
is what you would sort of hope for. Like that
Yeah, yeah.
backdrop is supposed to
Create
provide like
tension.
an interesting scenarios and stuff to like, and
Yeah,
that
and
was sort of
that's what it is.
that was why The Quiet Place sort of just baffled me. They tried to create an interesting premise and world, which you could argue wasn't interesting at all, but they tried, and then they decided they didn't even. The story they wanted to tell you was just so not interesting, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
Presumably, they just wanted to tug on the heartstrings about people like, oh, bringing a child into the world.
Yeah, they were irresponsibly doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I don't know. We can probably move on from all this stuff, but
Because it wasn't even also in the book and the film Bird Box, which was, mind you, pretty dumb, but that it has sort of a similar presence, but the main character, they're pregnant before the thing starts, so you can give them a pass, but this, they're not. So they lose their kid because they were bad parents, and then decided in a world where you can't make noise, it was responsible to have another kid. And so like they could have gotten around all of that very easily, but they decided that they just wanted to portray them as really terrible, irresponsible people. But I don't they didn't, or at least that's how I interpret it. But I guess probably maybe most people wouldn't. But
I tend to think a lot of the general population is more leans more towards that it is a good thing to bring children into the world. And I'm not saying it's not a good thing, but I feel like you should, if you're gonna do it, you should have valid reasons for doing it. Because
and this family
sure
didn't.
you want the lives of your kids to be better than yours, but you probably have no way of ensuring that that's going to happen, particularly not in the world of
This
A
world.
Quiet Place.
Yeah. I was baffled. So yeah, do yourself a favor and rewatch Tremors.
Or just anything else, perhaps.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I mean they're, and I could see if this was maybe the very first post-apocalyptic type movie you'd ever seen, you could get into it a little more, but
Oh, I watched a movie. I think it's a Netflix original called Significant Other.
mhm.
It's a sci-fi horror thing about two people going on a backpacking trip and some alien shape-shifting creature crashing into the earth,
Mm.
and like it can devour a thing and mimic them, and
So the thing.
just so much worse. It's dumb. It's really dumb.
So watch the thing instead.
Yeah. Like this creature thing ends up like capturing or capturing the male character and imitating the male character. And it, because it took up all of the male character's thoughts and stuff, the alien now has feelings for the girl and doesn't necessarily want to like kill her. It's just, oh god.
That's pretty bad.
It's just so dumb.
Like, why would it have evolved to do something like
I
that?
mean, the only thing that I will say for the film is at least in the end they don't try to force a happy ending. But
Okay.
so much of it is so dumb that
Have anyone watched the Cabinet of Curiosities? Any of those shorts? Guillermo del Toro's.
Oh
Guillermo
no,
del Toro.
I have not.
The
but I have
third
a friend
episode
who's
is
pretty
fairly.
positive of it.
I've only watched 3 episodes of it, but the third one is kind of follows similar themes to what that movie you were talking about was, but is better than that.
Lifeboat, if you're just joining us now, I was lambasting the movie A Quiet Place. I watched like 30 minutes of it and had to stop. It was that bad. But then we've talked about a bunch of other things too. But it started with that. Don't watch it, man. Don't watch it. If you want to watch a film, just rewatch the original Tremors. You'll be happier.
Lambasting mildly put. Yeah, I guess I haven't seen it, but I mean, I don't know. Yeah, we talked a bit about The Last of Us 2, Lifeboat. To summarize, the first 2 episodes are pretty good. I think probably about as good as we could hope them doing a video game thing, but it seems perhaps a little rushed to me. I'm not necessarily sold on the actor who plays Ellie, but
She was the girl from Game of Thrones, the one king in the north that like everybody liked because I don't even remember why. Maybe she kind of had a badass attitude, take no shit sort of attitude. I don't know if anybody remembers that.
I didn't watch any of that, and that's
Yeah.
probably after.
I only watched like the last couple seasons. I watched.
Is
none
it like
of the
Sansa who gets back over the narrow sea after being trained to be an
No,
assassin?
it's
Arya?
like
I was thinking about
some
Arya.
leader of the North, maybe. Maybe it's even the Mormont
One of the
heir on
girls?
Bear
Yeah.
Island.
No.
Yeah, the short one.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I'm sure
I'm
they'll
gonna
grow on
suggest
here.
that she was the Mormont girl in
He
Jorah
doesn't seem
Mormont? No, that was
or
a dude.
Jorah Mormont. He was, if I remember correctly, he was ousted from
Yeah,
Baron
yeah.
Mormont Bear Island. So like they have a leader who's a young girl.
Yeah, it's been too long. So, I don't know. I think she seems like she's a fine actor. I think it'll probably grow on. Yeah, although I think, as I mentioned, it seems maybe a little rushed. Like, I think they could have spent more time to develop some of the characters more in ways that the game couldn't do. Because, like, the game you're always playing, but like
Mhm.
the game also, like, you're playing and there's time for banter and back and forth stuff that allows you to slowly come to terms with the characters.
Yeah.
And I feel that while some of the same stuff is happening and similar conversations are happening, it feels very truncated. But I did mention a little bit earlier in the show, it feels a little truncated. I did mention, though, I feel having played it and liking the characters as much as I do playing the series, it's a little hard for me to separate the characters in the games from these. And like, I know who Ellie is and such, so it it's hard for me to judge like what someone new to new to the franchise coming into it, like what they would think of it. Are they thinking like, this is Rush, like I don't feel for these characters, or like I'm
Well,
not
Eric, I'll
sure.
watch it soon and I'll tell you.
Yeah, okay. Okay. But overall, like it's it's good. And I think for most HBO series, like
Adam
have like a
lambasted.
podcast. They have podcasts after the episodes, and I've listened to them because it's actually the the two like directors, like the creator of the franchise and the Chernobyl guy talking. So at least it's interesting to hear like why they did change certain things, and it does add some nice context
Yeah.
and show that like they are thinking about the stuff, even if um maybe to me it seems like maybe a bit questionable, but I think it's worth watching so far. But because in at least game terms, it gets really intense and pretty great, I think. Like
I've
one
been
of the
watching season 2 of The Witcher, and slowly, like one episode a week. And I guess it's fun, but I don't care enough about it to like pay too close attention to it. And like, I largely don't know any of the characters. I know the basic plot, and he's trying to protect Ciri, and she has some powers. But there are all these other characters and all this other shit going on that I don't know any of their names or very few of their names. And
Yeah.
it's just okay.
I, that's fair.
But probably
yeah.
everybody here who would have watched it years ago. Or I don't even know when season 2 came out.
Well, I
Maybe it's
couldn't
that
even
long
I
ago.
didn't even finish watching the first season because I was kind of like, eh. It was sort of fine, but I felt they didn't do the best job of conveying things, and it was like overly confusing.
It
But
was.
well, that's whatever. It's whatever. Um, yeah. So, are people excited about the upcoming Las Vegas Open previews?
No.
Not
Yeah,
really.
I am somewhat excited to see, but considering most of GW models are always a bit of a letdown, it is hard to be that exciting. Like they've shown this robotical dog, which I guess
Looks
it's
fine.
interesting in the sense that it suggests that they might be exploring different factions in Imperial factions rather than just more Space Marines, which is cool. But they've already released a dog for Kill Team, and it's a lot better than this dog.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, let's
Mm-hmm.
make another dog, but make it more robot or something, but not make it cool. I don't know. uh,
Yeah.
but maybe there'll be some enforcers and inquisitors or something.
Yeah,
I
so
don't
it has
know.
the possibility of being something cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess other sort of random stuff. Have you heard that the Rogel Dorn Imperial Guard tank, so like the new bigger Lehman Russ tank, it it has a hole in the bottom of it.
It's a big hole.
So like it just doesn't have a bottom because I guess they couldn't fit it in the sprues. Isn't that weird?
That's pretty weird. I mean,
Like,
I will say a lot of GW models have things like this, where they have big hollow spaces that are completely open in the bottom, which, like, really bothers me. Though I feel this is probably the most blatant.
yeah. I I guess in most it doesn't really matter. And I did see someone like it probably is kind of nice, like particularly me having priming and trying to airbrush all these big terrain pieces. Like it's kind
Hmm.
of horrible because like you have to do it in stages or like it's hard to hold areas because like you want to prime the whole thing, but you can't. And then but so if there are like holes like this, like you can literally probably stick a bunch of your hand in there to just hold it to better airbrush and
Yeah, I mean,
prime it.
that's true. Yeah.
So that will actually make painting stuff easier. But for how much money you pay for these kits, like I find it like because I saw there was even a poll that someone did on Twitter about like what you think about this, and they didn't have enough options to for me to convey like the opinions. But one was kind of like I just don't care. One was like, I'm happy that they put. I would rather they fill the sprues up with all the weapon options and leave the hole
Mm-hmm.
and such. And like, but there was no thing like in the way I'm kind of feeling of it. Like ultimately, it doesn't matter. But these are expensive model kits. Like they mark their stuff up a huge degree, almost certainly. There should be both. You can have both. You can have all the weapon options and not a gigantic hole in the bottom of it. Like you shouldn't have to like, oh well, if I want all the options, then I need to take
Here,
this sacrifice. Like what
here's
it seems
yeah.
like a false.
Here's a funny picture: Rogaldorn tank in the snow, and you see the treads of a vehicle, and then someone walking.
Yeah, that yeah.
It's funny. And then someone was saying, "Well, the hole's there, so you can put it on a flyer stand."
Yeah. It's like it really doesn't matter. I'd never buy this, but it just it seems weird. It just seems weird.
To me, it almost seems like, again, this is just another thing pointing towards the notion if you were wanting to like have tanks and stuff for your Imperial Guard, you would be better served to just buy scale model kits and stuff of real tanks and like
Yeah.
modify the weapons and stuff. They
So I
would
think
look
they
better and they would probably
yeah,
be cheaper.
agreed. Agreed.
So Meandering Shade mentions that he's watching a bunch of like full car things recently. Um, I don't know that I would say like I am an authority on full car, but well, I certainly am not. But I guess Wicker Man, the original Wicker Man's perhaps a classic in that genre, right?
I would
Perhaps
think so.
not the remake with Nicolas Cage in it. Um, Man, the fairly new film Man by I think it's Alex Garland. I would say that's probably a full car thing. If none of you've seen that, I feel like it is an Alex Garland film. That's worth seeing, particularly if you like weird body horror stuff.
Hmm.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
haven't seen it looked kind of interesting.
Yeah, I mean, Men was, I would say it was good. It was taking a strong look at toxic masculinity, but putting it in a full car setting.
That's cool.
And it had some very good cinematography. Cinematography that reminded me of Tarkovsky's Stalker. At
Yeah,
least
that's
That's
cool.
cool.
some of the scenes in the beginning and some of the wilderness shots.
Mm-hmm.
Very good looking.
Yeah.
You know, I guess Midsummer, if
Yeah,
people have
that
seen that,
what
which is,
about like in Heredity, the Hereditary?
I would say
That's
that probably is full car and horror here. At least I was surprised watching that, like maybe 75% of the way through the movie. It's like, oh, this is like a pagan cult creepy sort of film. I didn't realize
yeah.
that. Um, Lifeboat mentions the witch, and that feels
Yeah.
appropriate.
I haven't seen any of those.
Eric, you and I and your wife saw The Witch in a little theater in Baltimore.
Yeah,
It
she did not
was
like
kind
it.
of boring.
I think it was something that, yeah, it was kind of boring. I think it's, and honest, like almost all of those films that we've mentioned, or at least from my experience with like Hereditary, Witch, and so forth, you kind of need to go in them knowing a bit of like what you're getting into, or like you don't want to have the false sense like I'm going into a like a slasher film or like traditional horror film or something. Like they're much
Hmm.
more of like an atmospheric, and like,
Yeah.
not everyone is into that sort of thing. Like I think it's kind of cool and like interesting how they can directors and stuff can play with that tension to interesting effect, but like they're not really people pleasers. uh it's like when I watched Hereditary, it was with like my wife and her family, like the whole family was there. Like all the kids, and like it was like
Uh-oh.
just it was a weird choice. And
Yeah.
like no one was into it.
Yeah.
Except for my younger brother-in-law Paul, who had suggested it. It's just
Yeah.
like he should have suggested that just I watch this. Like it's like, because then I could have watched it and enjoyed it for sort of like what it is and what it was trying to do, but
Yeah.
it's like not like a family popcorn flick.
I feel I have a bunch that I don't know that I don't think I liked about Hereditary, but it did do a good job of making something very uncomfortable to watch.
Yeah.
Like it was not an enjoyable film to watch.
Yeah.
It was intentionally trying to be that. But
Well,
there
and I
were a
think
few things that pulled you out of it almost immediately by some stupid actions of some characters
Hmm.
pertaining to a nut allergy and nobody like taking any precautions to be prepared for that.
yeah, so I think that pulled my wife and kind of like everyone out of it and me. And since it was such a large group of people viewing it, it was like immediately like, okay, we don't, it's hard to take this seriously. I can't suspend my disbelief to enjoy
Hmm.
the atmosphere they're building. Like this is flawed and dumb. Like
Yeah.
now we're just going to kind of make fun of stuff
That's what
as it
happened with A
goes.
Quiet Place.
And so yeah, it was just not.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was, yeah, a very unsettling film that was not fun to watch. And then about 75% of the way through, you learn that, oh, there are a bunch of naked cultist people standing around. I guess it's a Wicker Man kind of film now, which I guess that's a little bit of a spoiler, but ultimately it doesn't matter, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Pretty
Yeah.
cool. Rewatch Tremors.
Well, I somewhat recently watched a trailer for Tremors, and like, it's kind of a comedy, right? Or it's intentionally to be kind of funny.
There are
Well,
certainly
certainly
like,
the trailer made it look like it
I
is.
mean, there are aspects of it sort of, but like not really. I mean, it's not a movie where it's trying to build tension and like stuff like that. I mean, it sort of does in some instances, but um
Wikipedia calls it a monster comedy horror film.
yeah, I guess. I mean, you could say that
It's
about A
not as
Quiet Place too.
well, I feel it's not as comedy as like the later Tremors films.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's very true.
I would agree with Meandering Shade about Witch being more successful in building atmosphere and such. But it was still like that those sorts of films are not one that like my wife is really excited to watch. So I watch them by myself.
Whereas for
Uh
me, like if I can watch a slow, boring movie that has sets up an interesting setting and premise, like I'm all for that.
I'm here for it.
Yeah, I'm here for it.
Yeah, I hear that. I hear that.
There's an old documentary. I think it's a documentary called Haxin, or yeah, I think it's called Haxin about like witchcraft and stuff. I'm calling it a documentary, but maybe it's not really a documentary. I think it is maybe even like there's no dialogue. Holy shit, it's from 1922.
Oh.
A silent horror essay film. And it might even be Swedish, where I think it talks about like witchcraft and stuff going throughout the years, which I know the Criterion Collection has restored it and released it, so that at least suggests that it's historically significant in some sense.
Oh, thanks for
Yeah.
joining us. Also, another film about like sort of building tension and stuff. Wages of Fear. A very
Still haven't
different type
seen
of
that.
film, but
I still haven't watched that. I also haven't
Women's
watched
Torture.
Sorcerer.
yeah.
Yeah, people are here are probably familiar with Wages of Fear or maybe have heard about it. Um, I believe it was a French film from maybe I'm gonna say 1955 or something about I think it's an oil refinery in maybe South America that catches fire, and the way that they're going to try to put out that fire is by blowing it up with nitroglycerin. So they hire a bunch of like 3 or 4 convict type people to drive these 2 trucks on like 100 miles of bad road with filled with nitroglycerin to the burning oil refinery. So it's a tense film about we have to drive these trucks so far and the roads are so treacherous and like
Hmm.
if we shake it too much, vehicle's gonna explode. Um
I mean,
and
didn't
yeah,
The
it's good.
Mandalorian basically do a bad episode
Oh
of
yeah,
that?
they did.
They
Yes.
did, yeah. Well, apparently recently there was a new trailer for the third season of The Mandalorian. Does anyone still care?
No,
I
I
didn't
was
see
told
it.
I was talking on stream with one of our friends, Gary, about it, and it's like, I maybe it somehow came up, and it's like, I mean, maybe it'll be somewhat interesting, because like at least the Mandalorian doesn't have Grogu anymore, and they could tell interesting stories. And he broke the bad news to me that I should have watched Book of Boba Fett because fucking Baby Yoda comes back
Yeah.
to him.
Yeah,
So
I
it's just back to that shit again.
it's back to that clown show. It can't be good because it has now seemingly it seems like it's trying to rely on just cameos and other shit like that. Um and there's literally no way it could be even a quarter of as interesting as Andor. Like no way. So, I don't care. As a matter of fact, I recently just canceled Disney Plus, so um that's cool.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Well, I put you and everyone. Oh. I mean,
I mean,
I
I'll watch.
imagine I will still watch season 3 eventually, but
I mean, I'll probably watch that. I mean, it still seems more engaging than a lot of the other Star Wars material,
yeah,
but
ultimately I think it'll still be fine, but it won't be. It's not going to be Andor. Nowhere close. And I mean, I will admit it's probably not trying to be, so that's fine. But yeah,
yeah, I think you're right.
Andor for me was was it
Dragging, probably.
okay? Yeah,
I didn't watch any of it.
I think it was the best Star Wars for, I don't know, ever maybe.
I think probably ever. I don't think
I
anything
think
even came
I know
remotely
some people
close.
did think it was maybe a little slow in the beginning, but I think it still had a lot
But
of
as we
payoff.
already suggested, if it's slow, we're here for it.
Yeah. I mean, it actually set up Star Wars in a way that like you could actually take it seriously. And I mean, not everyone wants that, I guess, but I wanted that.
Yeah. Yeah, I wanted something that had no Jedi in it, that didn't end with Luke Skywalker showing up, or
Yeah.
didn't have Boba Fett flying in, or
Riding a
any of
Rancor
that.
or some dumb bullshit. Oh, wait, he says the sub story characters were lacking, is what I meant. Well, I guess I would argue that at least compared to all the other Star Wars stories, like none of the characters had any depth or interest, sort of. So,
Yeah, I feel like all the other Star Wars things I've remembered seeing, there is so little character motivation or development that this, even though characters that weren't developed that much, still seemed better developed than most other Star Wars things. Like, cause even like some of his quote unquote friends back on, was it Ferrex maybe?
yeah, something like
Like that
that.
didn't do that much, but like, oh, would help him now and again. They still seemed like they had more motivations to be engaged against the Empire than most other characters in Star Wars stuff. So I don't know. Yeah, so I guess yeah, it's difficult because in a lot of cases Star Wars sets the bar so low. But I guess I
Yeah,
was just happy to see a different type of Star Wars story. Like there should be room for
yeah,
more of this sort of drama type story as well as more fun Jedi dueling sort of stuff, battle of good and evil.
yeah.
Like I think they don't have to be um both types of stories can be told, and I'm glad that they're starting to do some of that. But
Yeah.
I can see how why some maybe they wanted all the fan service and that it just wasn't there.
Or I mean, I sort of feel like there was a lot of fan service and stuff, but it was all in a much more subtle way. That if like you recognize something, you'd be excited. And
Yeah,
or with
Star
Star
Wars: The
Wars: The
Cold
Cold
War.
War.
That's true.
Yeah. No bullets, all spars. Well, I guess so. How's everybody feeling? I don't know. Do we have other stuff we think we want to continue to chat about, or do we want to soon call the stream to a close?
Yeah, I mean,
Go to bed.
Yeah, that's
yeah, I
fair.
feel maybe we're good.
Yeah. I guess thanks everybody for sticking with us and listening to our rambling about different things, films and whatnot. Rewatch Tremors. Stay away from A Quiet Place. I'll say it. This is the last time I'll say it. um, but yeah, so it's been fun. Thanks for being here with us. Stay safe, stay healthy, and keep on enjoying the hobby.
Yeah. See
Until next
everybody.
time, over and out.
Yep. Thanks, everyone.